Welcome into the Commanders Report. I am your host, Jack Sperry, and today we're going to be talking about the latest Commanders trade rumors less than 2 weeks away from the NFL trade deadline. Can't believe it, man. The trade deadline is pretty much almost already here, and there's lots of very interesting things to talk about in terms of the latest trade rumors surrounding the burgundy and gold. Make sure you guys stick around to the end of today's show to see what Colin Cowherd had to say about the Washington Commanders as we approach Week 8 in the 2024 NFL season. Now, before we get into the content today and before we get into the trade rumors, I want you to go ahead and click that thumbs up icon to kick off today's show because we are in a like battle with our frenemies here at Chat Sports, our Eagles channel, hosted by Chase Sr. And yesterday, they put up 642 likes on their video. And, Eagles Now host Chase Sr.'s was kind of getting in my face the other day here, talking about how the Commanders are the most overrated team in the National Football League, and he challenged us to a like battle. So if we can beat his total yesterday, that would be really, really good. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. If that's not enough to get you to click that thumbs up icon right now and like today's video, this is what Chase Sr. had to tell me the other day. Sometimes I just laugh when people talk about the Commanders as if they're in the same class as the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is everything they wish Jayden Daniels would be, and that skinny John won't last 2 years in the league without a serious injury. Commanders fans are bitches, all right? So if you guys want to stick it in the face of Chase Sr., our Eagles Now host right now, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now, and let's rack up those like numbers. Okay, let's get into a little bit of an injury update here. Of course, the big story of the week for Washington is whether or not Jayden Daniels is going to play this week against the Chicago Bears, and he did not practice today. If you're watching this later in the week, we did film this video on Wednesday. So as of right now, by the time of me filming this video, Jayden Daniels is not practicing, still dealing with those rib injury that he suffered in Week 7 against the Panthers. And according to Ian Rappaport, as we had discussed yesterday, his status for Week 8 in Chicago is quote-unquote in doubt. So now, we get to Jayden Daniels' update. Now let's get into the trade rumors. And there is a report from The Athletic's Ben Standig that claims that Adam Peters, the GM of the Washington Commanders, might stand pat at the NFL trade deadline this year instead of trading for a player to help out this roster. This is what Standig had to say in his most recent article. Washington isn't one player away from joining the league's top tier, especially on defense, and has several long-term holes. Now, the caveats. If there's a young player GM Adam Peters thinks is worthy of a multi-year contract and valuable draft picks, maybe. Same if the team is at least 6-3 by the deadline, which potentially became trickier with Jayden Daniels' week to week with a rib injury. Make a deal involving late-round picks, swap or straight up for a veteran cornerback or defensive lineman depth. Let's talk. So listen, man, you guys know me, okay? I've been saying for weeks on this channel, this team needs another corner. Plain and simply. If you want to go on any sort of run in the postseason, especially with a first-year playoff quarterback, if you end up making it to the postseason with Jayden Daniels this year, is you're going to have the defense support the offense at least a little bit. In order to do that against playoff-caliber offenses, you have to have a playoff-caliber defense. And the thing that can get this defense closer and closer to a top 10, top 15 kind of level that can be serviceable in a postseason environment, you're going to have to go out and get a big-name corner to be the number one CB in this secondary. And here's some of the top targets that we have talked about on the show. For me personally, I think Jaycee Horn is an excellent fit. He's got long arms. He's super physical. He is perfect for that number one press man island type role that Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. put Trayvon Diggs in with the Dallas Cowboys. He's young. He's very, very talented. He does have a little bit of an injury concern, but I think he's a perfect fit, and he's worth the gamble for the Washington Commanders if they can get him for the right price. But other options include Jonathan Jones, Greg Newsome, and others, including Marshon Lattimore around the league. But another position that some Commanders fans want to upgrade a little bit, especially after releasing Jamin Davis yesterday, former first-round pick, is edge rusher. Now, MLL Football here reported yesterday that the Titans, after just trading DeAndre Hopkins, are also looking to shop edge rusher Harold Landry, and apparently multiple people in front offices around the league in the National Football League are linking the Commanders as a potential team that could be interested for Harold Landry, somebody that is a very athletic edge rusher that's been extremely productive, especially recently in his NFL career. And honestly, guys, I don't hate the idea of the Commanders thinking about adding an edge rusher here, especially if they're going to get a corner. Now, obviously, if I only have one position that I'm going to trade for, I'm going to trade for a corner. But if you can potentially get both, especially at the right price, I'm absolutely open to that idea. So let's talk about Harold Landry and what he could bring to the table here in Washington. He's 28 years old. He's got very good size, a very good athlete, very explosive off the jump, and then also he's got 3 years left on his current contract, including this year. So if you trade for him, you don't have to give him a new contract. He's already got the contract situation figured out. We'll talk about his cap hits here in just a second, but he's also highly effective. He's good in both the run and passing phases on the outside. And if the Commanders want to put somebody on their starting defensive line here and get a true number one guy, I think Harold Landry would be your number one guy in this rotation right now if you ended up making a trade for him. Take a look at his sacks here and his production over the last 4 years. He had that torn ACL in 2022, but over the last 2 seasons, he's been fully healthy and he's been pretty darn good. Double-digit sacks last year in 2023. Back in 2021, he put up 12 sacks and 14 TFLs. Right now, he already has 7 TFLs in 6 games plus 4 sacks. So Landry has been a very, very good player for the Tennessee Titans. And now that it looks like Tennessee is going to be embracing a full rebuild, maybe they feel like for the right price, Harold Landry is somebody that they'd be willing to let go of. The remaining base salaries on his contract, guys, for this season, $17.25 million, but that's going to be prorated. Some of that has already been paid because of the games he's already played for the Tennessee Titans. So depending on when the Commanders end up potentially making a trade for him, it's going to be a lot less than that. It's going to be about half of that $17.25 million number, a little bit more than half. And then 2025 and in 2026, his base salary is $17.5 million. He doesn't have a roster bonus or anything like that. So pretty reasonable price here. $17.5 million over the next 2 years for somebody that is in the prime of their career. He's a double-digit sack guy, and he can certainly help this team try to win a Super Bowl in the years to come. And for me personally, man, I'd offer a 4th-round pick. That's at least where I would start the negotiations. If they want maybe like a pick swap for like a 3rd and a 5th or something like that, a 3rd and a 4th, something like that, I'd certainly be willing to negotiate if I were GM Adam Peters to get Harold Landry at the right price. Now, if they're saying we're not trading him unless we get a 1st or a 2nd-round pick, then I'm probably hanging up the phone. But for the right price, I'm absolutely interested in Harold Landry because I think that this defense could certainly use a top-flight edge rusher that can get double-digit sacks like Harold Landry can. Now, let's take a look here at some other edge rushers that could be traded to the Washington Commanders. Josh Uche from the New England Patriots is somebody to keep your eye on. Very athletic, kind of outside linebacker type. You got Zadarius Smith from Cleveland that I think would be a very good scheme fit here in Washington. Keep your eye on Zadarius Smith as a potential option. Azeez Ojulari, because it is from a division rival there with the Giants, I'd say is probably a little bit less likely. But hey, man, we traded Jahan Dotson to the Eagles, and these in-division trades are happening more often. And then I know Hassan Reddick just reworked his deal with the New York Jets to play this year, but that's a team that could certainly be selling at the deadline, sitting at 2-5. Maybe their season is starting to kind of devolve, and I think for the right price, I do think they'd probably be willing to let go of Hassan Reddick if the Washington Commanders were interested in him. But when it comes to Harold Landry, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Would you make this trade? Type A if you would accept it, or type D if you're going to decline it. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to be telling you about my friends at Fanatics. And while we're going down there, and while I'm talking about Fanatics, I should say, go ahead and put your answer to today's pinned comment. Now, coming up here, what did Colin Cowherd say about the Washington Commanders? Well, we're going to be breaking it down here on the show in just a second. But first, let's talk about Fanatics, man, because you know what I love about Dan Quinn is that he's not afraid to be himself. Colin Cowherd is somebody that hates it when starting quarterbacks and head coaches wear backwards hats. Guess what Dan Quinn does, man? He wears that backwards hat, and he is among the best coaches in the National Football League today, man. So if you want to rock that Dan Quinn backwards hat look and stick it in the face of Colin Cowherd, you guys can do that on Commanders game days this year when you go to chatsports.com/DQ, where you can get this awesome and affordable Commanders ball cap from our friends at Fanatics. And also it helps out the show, guys. So when you use that link, chatsports.com/DQ, and you make a purchase, we get part of the proceeds. So if you want to get a Washington Commanders ball cap today so you can wear it DQ style backwards on game days, and you want to help out the channel, you guys can go to chatsports.com/DQ to get that done right now. So now let's talk about Colin Cowherd here, man. And I teased at the beginning of the show, but he praised the Washington Commanders and Dan Quinn, the backwards hat-wearing head coach, earlier this week on his show. This is what Colin had to say about the Commanders. The Commanders are doing everything right. They have the #1 point differential in the NFL. That's something. That's usually a team that ends up in a conference championship. Now, that point differential definitely helps when you beat the Carolina Panthers by 33 points, all right? So that's worth mentioning, that 33-point deficit certainly helps where the Commanders currently sit in that particular statistic. But the big question here that he raises is, could the Washington Commanders potentially make an NFC championship game this year, especially if they continue to absolutely put a walloping on teams like the Cardinals? And, they've scored a lot of points against Cincinnati, and they absolutely killed the Carolina Panthers. If they continue to do that kind of stuff, man, I absolutely think it's a potential option for this team to make the NFC Championship game. You guys have heard me talk about on the show why I think Super Bowl might be a little bit out of the question for the Commanders, especially if they don't make a big-time move or two at the trade deadline on defense. Especially with a first-year playoff quarterback. Your head coach is in here for the first year. The numbers and the history of the NFL don't bode well for teams like the Commanders in the postseason. But right now they're playing great football, and they can beat anybody on any given Sunday. So absolutely, I think it's a possibility. Is it a likelihood they make the NFC Championship game? I would say NFL history probably says no, but is it a possibility? I would say absolutely yes, especially if they make some of the moves that we talked about earlier in today's show at the NFL trade deadline. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Can the Commanders make an NFC Championship game this year? Is this team capable of doing something like that? Give me a yes or a no on today's program. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. That's going to be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we got a bunch of great Commanders trade content coming your way here, getting you guys ready for the NFL trade deadline. And of course, if there's breaking news and the Commanders end up making a trade, we're going to get you guys a video as soon as we possibly can right here on the channel for free. So if you want breaking news Commanders content all year round, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. And until next time, go raise some hail.